Okay, now we're at step 8. In step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So here we're just making the list. We're not actually making the amends yet. That's the next step. But to prepare yourself for it, this is where you go back into that inventory of what your character defects were that we did earlier, and you should have listed some people that you may have caused harm to that you would need to make amends to. You may have started doing this along the way. I know that I did, is that when I made that list earlier in step 4, that there were some of those that I was able to go to right away before I even got to the step that said I'm supposed to do that. But chances are you still have some unfinished business, and it is important to take care of all that unfinished business and put it in your past instead of carrying it with you into your future. This is the time to do that. I right now have 37 years of recovery, and when I go to meetings, a lot of the people there are not even 37 years old, so they'll point that out, of that you have more recovery under your belt than I have years of life, and want to know, well, how did I manage to do that? And that this is basically how I did it, is that I believe that sobriety is not using the drugs, but recovery is not using people. And if I quit using people, I'm going over the high hurdle of recovery instead of the low hurdle of sobriety. That I've certainly seen it in many people, and I was very fortunate to have some spiritual awakenings through working the steps and through life experiences that allowed me to understand recovery as being different than sobriety. But I've seen it in many people that they're in and out of the program for years. They may have gotten first in the program 10 years earlier, and they've been in and out over the course of 10 years and wondering, well, how come I can't have the sobriety that you have? And I'll usually ask them, I say, well, tell me about which values that you learned to change when you started working the steps. And they'll be like, what are you talking about, values? And I'll say, okay, that right there answers the question for me as to why your recovery was not solid. Is because you weren't actually in recovery, you were just sober. You abstained from using drugs or from drinking, but you didn't really stop using people. So the guy who is a drunk and he can't hold a job and support his family, he goes home and beats the kids, he cheats on his wife, and he gets into recovery supposedly by not drinking anymore, but he still doesn't hold a job and support his family, he still cheats on his wife, he still beats his kids, does not have recovery, because recovery is about changing your values so that you stop using people. And that if you don't do that, you're not in recovery, you're just abstaining, and therefore you're a dry drunk. So it's very important at this point in time that you go back and clear up any baggage that may be pulling you back into just being dry and abstaining, but not really being in recovery.